Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel and the Dragon Suplex Podcasting Network. That's right, guys. I got in kind of the habit of putting out like a podcast like every 8 days or so, and I wanted to get away from that habit. I wanted to put out a podcast every 3 or 4 days. So here we go. I hope you guys like the podcast from September 13th. This is the podcast from September 15th. That's right. We're hitting you hard because we had a newsworthy few, like 48 hours, I would say. PWI 500 dropped. We had a Dynamite. And honestly, I just really like pro wrestling. And what reminds me that I like pro wrestling is the PWI 500. A lot of people are talking about it. Like it's toxic, like all people do is like to argue. But guys, we're just arguing about pro wrestling and what pro wrestler we like more than the other one. I mean, it's supposed to be fun. Of course, you could, make fun of someone's quad injuries if you're Will Ospreay. You could be talking about merch sales, which kind of brings everything to a business front. And kind of takes away from the fun, like Kevin Nash. But we are just fans here. We aren't living legends. We aren't current megastars. We are all just pro wrestling fans here, or at least I am recording this podcast. I remember 9/11/2001. I was a kid. A week after 9/11/2001, I had a ride in my first plane ride. And I'm going to be honest, I was fucking scared. I mean, your first plane ride, you're always scared. And then 9/11, you're worried that it's going to get hijacked. You don't know what's going on. The media was definitely in my brain. The bad guys were definitely in my brain. But then my dad gave me a PWI 500. My first time I ever got it. I thought it was super cool. And then guess who was on the plane ride that day? Hurricane Helms, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, and Lita. And I remember thinking, no one's fucking taking this plane down. We got Team Extreme here. We got a superhero on board. We're fine. They signed it right where the numbers were. Hurricane Helms actually borrowed it to look through it. I think Kurt Angle was definitely on the... I don't think. Kurt Angle was definitely on the cover. And a few months later, I met Kurt Angle. And everyone was getting his book signed that he put out. I guess it was a few years later, but I got him to sign that magazine. I don't know what the hell I did with that magazine, but it had Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, Lita, and Hurricane Helms autograph in it. So from that moment forward, I always enjoyed the PWI 500, and now with Twitter and everything, I enjoy it even more because I can complain with everybody, I can critique it with everybody. But I was looking at it and I was like, the PWI 500 would be pretty interesting this year because like Stone Cold main evented WrestleMania and won it. So shouldn't he be at the top? And then Logan Paul had 2 matches. Shouldn't he be at the top? Ric Flair had a match. Shouldn't he be at the top? I'm thinking the top 4 or 5 guys are going to just piss everyone off. And then I looked at the criteria. You must have at least 10 matches. And it went from 2001, July of 2000... July of 2021 to July of 2022, guys, getting all choked up thinking about this 9/11 plane ride. There was also like a NASCAR pit crew on the plane too. But yeah, we went from Raleigh to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta I went to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. My dad was a big Formula One fan even back then, and we went to a Formula One race. So it was a crazy ass trip. I was a kid. And I still remember it to this fucking day. It was awesome. But going back to wrestling, going back to the PWI 500, number 1, Roman Reigns. And you have to be fucking stuck on stupid to kind of argue that. I know some people were saying Moxley, but it's hard to even take any of that seriously. I mean, the guy main evented pretty much every WWE pay-per-view that matters. He is the biggest star on the biggest show. Legit cool as fuck. I mean, I checked out the Logan Paul podcast, and he was sitting there with these hosts that I think maybe younger people think are cool. I mean, they're kind of goofy. I mean, I would hang out with them, I guess. But he's sitting there, chopping it up with them, like staying cool, but also getting the kind of respect that he's a badass. Where I feel like if you watch like Regis and Kelly with when they used to have all these wrestlers on there, it was kind of hard for the wrestlers to kind of break character and kind of be like cool in real life, but also be respected as a badass, and Roman Reigns pulled it off. He's also on the late night shows when it comes around. So he is just a step above as far as star power, as far as anyone else that wrestles currently. I would even put it above Brock Lesnar at this point. He's held the world title for 700 days, and this is a kayfabe list. So you got to take that in consideration. So he's held the title for 700 days, the most prestigious title. He's got to be number one. It's literally Roman, then everyone else, if you're thinking about it from a kayfabe perspective. Number two, however, Okada. And I think he's number two because, he doesn't have that mainstream appeal as Roman Reigns, as I just mentioned. But 2 out of 500, goddamn, that ain't bad. And then if you look at his criteria, once again, people were saying Mox. But Mox, I mean, he did great. But he didn't win back-to-back nights at Wrestle Kingdom, legitimizing the new World Heavyweight title that New Japan was trying to legitimize. Beating, the title that Ospreay, Ibushi, Shingo couldn't legitimize. I think it finally became a real world title when Okada went back-to-back at Wrestle Kingdom. And then he wins the most prestigious tournament in all of wrestling, the G1. You got to put Okada at number 2. Number 3, CM Punk. He would be a shoo-in for my top 10, I think, if I was ranking him. But number 3, I mean, if you look at it from a kayfabe aspect, he comes into play because he did not. He stayed undefeated during that whole time period. He had a great, but the best match he had was that dog collar match, not for the world title. He won the world title twice, but he sits at number 3. I would maybe move him down to a 7 or 8 or 9. I would, I'm trying not to complain. I'm trying to just spit the facts here. I see where they're coming from with CM Punk. When they were compiling this list together, you got to remember that he only lost the title due to injury one time, and all that backstage fiasco didn't exist yet. Even though that backstage fiasco would not exist because this is a kayfabe list. However, Hangman Page, he had a great series of matches with Danielson. He sits at number 4, and I would honestly switch it. He held the title for longer than CM Punk during this duration of time. He had one of the best matches of Dynamite history with Danielson. I would honestly make a case, if I was in this committee putting this list together, that Hangman should at least jump Punk for number 3. But I don't think I would push CM Punk behind the guy that's at number 5. I'm not sure even why he's number 5. Bobby Lashley. It's interesting to see him anywhere close to the top 5. He lost matches to The Miz. He lost matches to Theory. He was pretty much just a mid-carder on Raw for most of it. But then you start looking at it, and he won his WrestleMania match. He held the title at the start of the period of time for this time. So the kayfabe rankings, I mean, maybe he is number 5. I don't know. I think I would put him, in the top 20, but just shy of the top 10. I think now this is when you can really start arguing Moxley should be ahead of these guys. Number 6, Cody Rhodes. This was not a kayfabe list. I would have him, in my top 10 all day. But he wasn't being booked too strongly in AEW, despite all the complaints online saying that he was overbooking himself. He lost to Malachi Black. He lost to Andrade, trying to put Andrade over through a flaming table. The only guy that's ever tried to put Andrade over in AEW. What the fuck's going on with him? And even dropped the TNT title to Guevara in a ladder match. I guess the PWI really ranks Rollins, beating Rollins really high, because that was him coming back at WrestleMania and then him beating Rollins 3 times. Might be the only reason he's in the top 10. I mean, I can see him in the top 20, but number 6, I would put the guy at number 7, and I would put Moxley above him. Moxley is pretty much the guy that everyone's talking about, wondering why he's not in the top 10. But we'll get to him a little later because we're going to number 7, Bryan Danielson. I think this guy is ranked right where he needs to be. It's important to take in that it's only his AEW run at this point. You would put him a little higher. But then you remember his last 2 Hangman matches he lost. And he hasn't really held a title in AEW. He can't win the big one in AEW. We'll find out next week if he can. But other than that, he's virtually been perfect. So number 7 in a kayfabe sense, why not? Number 8, I was pretty happy about this. Vikingo, or I guess now El Hijo del Vikingo. I didn't know he was second generation wrestler. Every time I see this guy, I like him a little more. I don't watch too much AAA. I only watch about 2 to 3 shows a year, but this guy is always the highlight of those shows. He's a one-man gift machine. He fucking dresses like a Viking, is a tiny little, like, Ricochet, eat your heart out guy dressed as a Viking. And he kills it. I think he had a great match with Kenny Omega. I don't know if that was on this year's criteria, but I don't watch too much to critique why he would be at number 8, but I don't bat an eye at him in the top 10, and it's cool to see a Lucha guy get in the top 10 here. Lucha is kind of ignored, in comparison to other North American countries like America and Canada, and even Japan at this point. Number 9, Big E. He won the world title. It was one of the coolest moments in this past year, so I think that's what got him at number 1. I raised an eyebrow at the high ranking then because I went to Cage Match, but then I went to Cage Match and he was beating Rollins left and right before the title run. Way more times than Cody beat Rollins. So why is he at number 8? Like I was thinking he shouldn't be in the top 10, but then when I look at his matches through this year, he beat Rollins more than Cody beat Rollins. They were all, SmackDowns and house shows. But shit, this is kayfabe, right? And he won the title. So, why would you put Big E under Cody? I guess he was hurt. I guess but Cody was hurt. But whatever. I mean, I think he's a shoe-in. You really can't argue if he sits at 8 or 13. It's out of 500. This is being real nitpicky. Number 10, just cracking the top 10, Jonathan Gresham. This guy pretty much quit the business, but not in the time frame that we are looking at this PWI list. During the time frame, though, he held the Pure title in Ring of Honor. He held the Tag title in Ring of Honor. He won the Ring of Honor World title. So you got to put him in the top 10 here. He only lost to Claudio Castagnoli. He took that title into Warrior Wrestling, PWG, GCW. It seems like all the letters that you hear the cool wrestling fans talk about, he was there. He was winning matches. Even New Japan Strong, as I burp into the microphone a little bit here. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. You hear all about it. So, you can make a strong case, of course, in the kayfabe sense, that he would jump Mox, that he would be in the top 10. You could make a strong case that he would be above Bobby Lashley, but I guess they look at the WWE as the major league. So holding the world title for a small period of time, losing it, and then kind of just sitting in the mid-card on Raw puts you above just running the indies for a solid year. And that's pretty interesting. I hope he doesn't quit the indies or quit wrestling in general, because, I mean, it would be great to see him wrestle Vikingo just looking at this top 10 list. And that match could happen. Jonathan Gresham, come back to wrestling, man. We fucking need you. Number 11 through 12, Shingo is number 11. Mox is number 12. You could make a case for these guys to be in the top 10. You could put Cody out there. You could put Big E. You could put Bobby Lashley, or even Bryan Danielson out of the top 10 to put these guys in. I don't think anyone would bat an eye. Number 13, Cardona. That's got to be the highest he's ever been ranked. Well deserved. How cool is this? Talking about running the indies like Jonathan Gresham, I would now say Cardona is running the indies. He held the GCW title and the NWA title at the same time. And unlike Shane Douglas, he figured out a way to make it work, and he went to both companies pretty much the same character, cutting the same kind of promos. I don't think you would ever seen this guy in the top 50 if he stayed in the WWE. That shows you that, if you're not happy, the grass is sometimes greener on the other side. And then you got Josh Alexander, someone who stayed in Impact when Ethan Page left. And Ethan Page has been kind of just not drowning, but kind of treading water at best in AEW, standing behind people cutting good promos, while he could probably cut at just as good of a promo, if not better, this whole time. And Josh Alexander winning world titles. So sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side, and you can, it's good to see that juxtaposition with 13 and 14 here. 15, Tanahashi, MJF at 16, Rollins at 17, Adam Cole at 18. What the fuck for? He went to AEW, won the Owen, but other than that, he's kind of just been sitting there losing to Hangman, not being able to win the big one. I wouldn't have this guy in my top 20. Number 19, Omega. I guess being hurt that whole time really hurt his ranking here, but he sits at number 19. Number 20, Drew McIntyre. I would have had him possibly above Omega, definitely above Cole in my ranking, but of course I'm being nitpicky here. Will Ospreay, all his 5-star matches got him ranked at 27. I mean, if he was in the top 10, I wouldn't bat an eye. Like Bobby Lashley, I like him. He's a good powerhouse, but I would not have him in my top 5 or top 10. Maybe even, I can see him sitting around there in the 18s and 20s. But anytime I see a guy ranked high, I think about that Bobby Lashley ranking, and I'm, scratching my head a little bit here. I would have Will Ospreay definitely in my top 15. Cool to see Hammerstone, Mike Bailey, and AC Mack in the top 30. A lot of people thinking that Dax Harwood should have been, they're saying number 1, but, I mean, he wasn't anywhere in the top 30. I was trying to look for him. I gave up. But if you look back, other than tag matches, he took a lot of L's, and this is a kayfabe ranking system, not a Meltzer ranking system. You got to wait for the Wrestling Observer Awards to get, that kind of prestigious award out for this year. This is the kayfabe ranking system. You got to love it. It gets people talking. You can just put who should be number 1 in the PWI 500, and you just get a list of comments ranging from everywhere. I mean, people making jokes, people legitimately bringing up good points. A lot of people just saying Roman Reigns. A lot of people saying Mox, and Mox sits at number 12. I think he was number 1 in 2019 or 2020, so he got bumped super far. Omega got bumped super far. He was number 1 before, I think last year. Okada's been number 1 before. Roman's been number 1 before. So this list is just fun every year. And I was just kind of given, a second to give my 2 cents on it. I want you guys to weigh in. I want you guys to let me know what you think of the PWI 500 in the comments below on YouTube, in the comments on Twitter, or, post on Twitter, whatever you need to do. If there's some way to talk to me on Spotify, let me know on Spotify, or just like and subscribe. But right now we're going to go into AEW Dynamite from last night, from literally less than 12 hours ago. We're talking about it. Before we go into the matches and ranking every single match from worst to first, we're going to be talking about everything else that happened. MJF comes out mad, talks about Moxley, talks about some heavy shit, talks about Moxley drinking too much and all that stuff, and then introduces Stokely Hathaway and the rest of the faction, but leaves. I didn't know if I liked this at first, but I kind of do. I mean, you don't have MJF just standing in the background. He comes out, cuts a promo, and then when the rest of the group comes out, he takes off. And that's fine because you have Stokely Hathaway being able to talk. I mean, shit, you got the Gun Club who's super over with the chant. You got Ethan Page who can talk. And you got, let's not forget, W. Morrissey was in a tag team known for talking. At his height of his success, it's good to see him back. But, yeah, this was a great promo introducing everybody. And then, you kind of learn more about the group as the show went on. I think the person with the most to prove in this group is Lee Moriarty. I mean, he dyed his hair green. He's trying to stand out. But if you look at Yuta, Garcia, Moriarty was in that group getting brought up with them. And now Yuta and Garcia are in prominent factions, prominent feuds. And, they main evented last week. So now you have Moriarty, odd man out here, having not done too much since he came to AEW. This is his faction to prove himself in. Let's see what happens here with his green hair. You also have Jungle Boy and Lethal. They had a good video package for their match on the same show. Action Bronson and Hook training hype video. I'm hyped for this. We learned with Bad Bunny and Logan Paul that if you care a little bit and you are a fan and you have good work ethic, you can have a really good match. Action Bronson is all those things. He cares. He loves wrestling. If you listen to any of his raps, there's probably a wrestling reference in there. Mr. Wonderful, I think, is one of his first hits. He talks about wrestling all the time. And then if you watch more, he's been losing a ton of weight the past few years, I think. So he's been getting ready for a moment like this. It's in New York, 2.0 or, Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Angelo. They're the perfect opponents for this. It's like a level up above QT. They're bump machines. They're heat machines. This is going to be awesome. It was cool to see Luigi Primo. You talk about how Vikingo is a one-man gift machine. This pizza-making pro wrestler is a one-man gift machine. He gets his head kicked off by Ethan Page. I mentioned that Ethan Page is treading water. He's in this faction right now, and he stood out a little bit here on this show, challenging Danhausen. I know they're friends in real life. They probably have good chemistry, but also it's good to have Ethan Page kind of start at the bottom and work his way up into the top and just get win after win. Maybe not as impressive as a Wardlow or a Powerhouse Hobbs, but maybe a little bit more crafty, and then you give him a little bit of mic time at the end. I think you can go a long way with Ethan Page here. Dan Lambert, nowhere to be seen, and I think that's good news if you're Ethan Page. So the tale of the Trios titles, remember this whole time, I was against the Trios titles. And then we had the first week, the champs get stripped for whatever happened backstage. The second week, they put him on Death Triangle, but it's kind of like, Death Triangle wasn't even in the finals of this Trios tournament here, so you're already kind of scratching your head. Third week here, Lucha Bros lose to, I would say, the actual tag champs, and Pac in the back gets attacked, not from the back, but standing face-to-face with Orange Cassidy. We will see what will happen in the future, but right now, these titles are already an afterthought. You already have the three men that make up this title not trying to find a number one contender and doing their own shit, because one of them already has another title that doesn't get any love on the actual television show either. So these trios titles are doomed to fail, and a month in, it already is failing. The best part of these trios titles already happened, which was the trios tournament, and that really didn't go anywhere in hindsight. Woods versus Joe on Rampage. The video package was good, I guess, but I'm just really excited about this match. I think those two guys have a lot to prove and can show the world that they're pretty good. Jumping to the matches on Dynamite. I'm ranking every single match from worst to first. I haven't done this in a long time. It feels refreshing to go back and do something like this. Number 6, Hobbs and Matt DiMartino. Spinebuster from Hell 1, 2, 3. Hobbs gets the victory. The crowd wants Ricky. Hobbs wants the mic. Ricky comes out, uses the mic against Hobbs, chases him away. This feud isn't done, but it's a good feud to have. I'm excited to see what happens in the future with it. Baker and Deeb versus Storm and Athena sits at number 5 out of 6. This was a good match. Athena gets thrown into the steps. Rebel distracts the referee as Tony Storm gets hit with a chair. Roll up 1, 2, 3. Athena comes back in just to get beaten up a little more. Hayter comes out. Crowd pops. Crowd wants Hayter to be a face. I want Hayter to be a face. But then she just attacks Athena a little more. Which, first of all, Athena has just been getting attacked ever since she came into AEW. She gets attacked by Jade over and over and over again. Now I guess they're pulling her away from Jade just to get attacked by Britt Baker and Hayter here. The crowd wants Hayter. Sure, she was in Stardom and she was in all this other stuff, but she's pretty much a homegrown. And you had the built-in story with her leaving the faction. I don't know why you would not play into that. We've seen just groups of women beat each other up for months. It's boring. You have now an actual story arc that you could play off of with women that actually like each other, which I think is what hurt Baker and Tony and Thunder Rosa in the long run, is they didn't really like each other. But you throw it all away, just like Puddle of Mud's hit single in 2002. You throw it all away just to attack Athena a little more and go back to what you've been pushing for 2 years now. Remember during the pandemic when Britt Baker was cutting these great promos and that introduced Rebel and she kept calling her Reba and that it felt so good and fresh? We are a long way from that shit now. Britt Baker has kind of stalled out, and I feel like a storyline like this would help her get going again. But now it seems like Baker, your standout in the division, is kind of at the same level as all these other ladies, and that's not good. I mean, they're just going to play hot potato with the damn title, and no one is going to have anything to sink their teeth into. Jade is just going to be on an island by herself, which is probably the best place she would be because she's at least seen as important, and she comes out looking like a star out of all of this, where everyone else just kind of is in this other island shuffling around. Number 4 out of 6, Swerve and Our Glory versus the Lucha Bros. This was a good short match. I guess they are trying to just get a lot of star power on the show, because I think a few weeks ago this would have been just some other team other than the Lucha Bros, because they don't want the Lucha Bros taking an L. But now they don't care, I think. The Lucha Bros have a title. Swerve and Our Glory have titles. It really doesn't matter too much. The highlight here was Lee throwing Phoenix from the outside into the ring to break up a pin attempt. Keith Lee going crazy, hitting like an attitude adjustment jackhammer for the win. These big man moves are always cool. They're just like devastating. So you can really just kind of throw the guy up and throw him down, which is what Lee did here. The Acclaim come out, cut a little bit more serious promo than usual, cutting, not cutting an actual freestyle, just cutting an actual promo. And I can see them getting the titles here at Arthur Ashe Stadium. But that's number 4 out of 6. Number 3 out of 6, right there in the middle, Lethal versus Jungle Boy. I think a lot of Dynamites, this would have been the best match. Singh steps in the way of Jungle Boy trying to dive. Sanjay gets on the apron. Lethal takes advantage. Jungle Boy fights back, hits a lariat. Lethal combination. Dive from Lethal. Elbow off the top. Vintage Lethal. But Jungle Boy locks in the snare trap, and Jay Lethal taps out like a bitch. Number 2 out of 6, the Curtain Jerker. Mox versus Guevara. Lariat from Mox almost took Sammy's head off. Sammy getting thrown around like he's Heartbreak Kid wrestling Hogan at SummerSlam. Anna Jay and Ty Conti come out. Anna Jay distracts the referee while distracting all of us. Then Ty comes in with the low blow. 1, 2. Mox kicks out. Sammy misses the senton. GTH countered by the paradigm shift. 1, 2, 3. Moxley gets the win, and he moves on in the world title tournament. Number 1 out of 6. One of the best matches I have seen on Dynamite. Danielson has 4 of the top 10 matches in Dynamite history, and he's only been there a little over a year now. All Danielson in the early going. Chop battle turns Jericho's chest red. Jericho throwing elbows at Danielson, hulking up. One too many Hogan references on this podcast. Psycho knee. Danielson's ankle hurts as he spills to the floor. Doctor's coming out to check on him. Jericho just goes after that fucking ankle, using the post, hitting the knee breaker. Danielson somehow manages to lock in the label lock, and Jericho taps out as if he were a bitch. Great show. You can tell there's a concerted effort to slow these matches down. Even like Swerve and Our Glory and the Lucha Bros, they had a great match. It was a spectacle of a match, high flying, but it was slowed down, and every match told a story. Let's go back to these lesser ranked matches. I mean, Baker and Deeb, they used the chair, and I guess we were kind of concerned about Hayter and Baker, but now we know that Hayter and Baker are strong now. Hobbs, destroys Matt DiMartino, whoever the hell that is. And then we got Ricky coming out. He's not done with Hobbs. Lethal and Jungle Boy. You put over Jungle Boy. He's kind of in a holding pattern while Christian Cage gets healthy. But you still have him look strong here. Sanjay Dunn bumping all over the place. You kind of remind everybody that Singh is, just a big wall. I like these matches. Guevara, he got a great promo that a lot of people were talking about online. He killed it in this match. But next week, it's Blackpool Combat Club versus Blackpool Combat Club. These tensions were building, until William Regal came out and made them a team, and now we're seeing these tensions collide. You know, they're forged in combat, as they say. This is going to be a really good match. Remember last year at Arthur Ashe, Omega versus Danielson. Will it live up to that hype? Will it live up to that dream match? I wouldn't call this a dream match, but I would call it a solid main event. And maybe you got to put the title back on Mox. I feel like the crowd wants it on Moxley. I don't know what you would do with Blackpool Combat Club after that. I don't know how you would kind of have Danielson lose his title opportunity and not be a little jealous to the point where he hated Mox. And I don't know if you put the title on Danielson, would you not have Moxley, jealous of Danielson to the point where he hated Danielson? I don't know where you go from here, but I'm going to tune in and find out. I hope you guys keep tuning into wrestling, and I hope you guys keep tuning into this podcast. As always, fly high. I'm out.